Welcome to Wayne's World of Mandolin. I'm glad you clicked on this one. Most of the time, people are a little reluctant when they see words like scale or interval or exercise. Doesn't really sound like fun, does it? But for me, none of what I'm going to talk about today was really none of it felt like a labor. I always just enjoyed the sound of the mandolin and knowing that I was learning something. The scale shapes. In first position, this has been touched on in some earlier videos, how many of them are just really visual things in first position. I want to demonstrate what I'm talking about today with the G major scale. We're going to recognize this shape. That's our G major scale, starting and ending on a G note. And we see that 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5 in first position as far as fret numbers. Now on the bottom half of the mandolin, I always like to say that because a lot of scales, it was A before when I mentioned this, it was the A scale in one of the earlier videos. But anyway, with G, the same thing happens where on the bottom half of your mandolin, the strings are going to be played open, but it's going to be 2, 3, 5 that we play with our left hand. And I'm adding that extra A note, if you wanted to think of it like that, just to keep it even, like the top half, bottom half. That makes it nice and easy to remember, and it makes it very visual on the fretboard. So automatic things that we could do would be alternating pick direction, and playing through that scale. It's kind of two birds with one stone that we practice with our right hand, alternating pick direction, and with our left hand, just knowing where these notes are on the fretboard. So that's going to give us the whole scale over one note beyond 2 octaves. So we're perfectly ready at this point to play the scale in intervals, which is going to help us in the long run to be able to use this scale in a modal approach to other chords of the G chord scale. That probably sounds a lot tougher to do than it really is. Many times the language of this kind of thing can be intimidating at first. But listen to the sound of this. I'm going to play through the intervals. I'm leaving that last one off. We would have actually started on another A note to get all the way back up to here. But what I had already played represented the chords of this chord scale if we were going to play that all the way up the neck as chords. Now we're just kind of seeing that in first position. This is a great exercise. You could play this entire thing in tremolo to work on right hand things again, trying to get two birds with one stone, that both hands are, something's coming from this, and mentally, that we're beginning to hear how those intervals work. If I just singled that second interval out, the A note, when we hear that, if there was an A chord, a big powerful A with no, I'm not playing a third at all, minor third or major third, it's kind of a power chord. Now we're beginning to hear really what happens with the modes. This is still the G scale, and I'm starting it on the A note. But really what's happening there is that I'm making the A note the tonal center. if you were playing a jam session, you know, like a really spirited version of 9-Pound Hammer in the key of A, and everybody's that kind of groove like that, and your solo. If you've ever struggled with trying to, you know, capture a little bit of that darker sound in your break, like for whatever reason you can't break away, there we go. I just played a C note, pulled off of that note. Well, that's a minor third if you're playing in the key of A. It's okay to process the thought that way. For some people, it's easier to try to, you know, make that transition into playing a little more colored solo like this by actually approaching it in a modal kind of way. And this is just a great thing to practice because of the color in first position. And later on, as we take full scales, like if we were playing the G scale, all of those double stops that we could play, that phrase, those were all G double stops that I was playing. And kind of building up to that would be learning to shift modes like that in first position with this one scale, this one modal thing. If you haven't ever done something like this before, it can really begin to pay off, and that you could transpose the ideas into other chords, and hopefully it's going to lead to some real ambition to do the work that we need to in first position learning this scale. One by one, you could even write them down as you really memorize the scales in first position, taking advantage of the open notes the way that we need to. You want to make it through all of the scales like this. It's gonna you'll just be a better player, and you will have a connection to the fretboard that it's really hard to accomplish through nothing but memorizing tunes. We need to be doing all of those same things. You could alternate. I mean, when you're practicing, try to have more than one thing in front of you. You could play that particular mode of an A minor, where we're using the G major scale, then just play a tune in the key of G, so that we're using that root note of G. Great G tune there. You could practice execution of a melody like that after a few rounds of playing that tune in first position that uses the fundamental of the G major scale. Then go back. Won't play through it again, but go back through those intervals and alternate between working on a fundamental like that and then a melody that's supported by knowing that scale. This is a great thing to do with every different chord that you ever play out of. Learn those fundamentals and then associate it with something musical, and you can really expect to grow that connection to the fretboard. Okay, I hope you're not bored with these exercises and that you can just have fun with it the way I do. If you like the video, then I would appreciate hitting that like button, and you could subscribe to the channel. That'd be great. You could reach out to me for some one-on-one Skype sessions as well. There should be a link here on YouTube. You could get to me in a private message at Facebook. Have fun with the intervals. I do.